Court has just ruled that states cannot remove Trump from their presidential ballots.
You might recall a few months ago, Colorado took the unprecedented step of removing Trump from their presidential ballot, and then a few other states quickly followed suit.
We actually predicted at the time that the Supreme Court would overturn this whole thing.
Absolutely going to be appealed up to the U.S. Supreme Court. It's very likely they'll overturn this ruling and void the whole thing.
This prompted a lot of people to say that we're dumb, but that's exactly what they did, and they were unanimous, actually.
As always, we're not opining on what's right or wrong, just analyzing the actual law. So the Supreme Court's decision actually didn't discuss whether or not Trump engaged in an insurrection on January 6th, and therefore was disqualified by the 14th Amendment, which is what the whole Colorado case was about.
That's because the court said at a baseline, states can't just remove nominees from presidential ballots, regardless of what they did or didn't do. States can only remove nominees from state elections.
Under the 14th Amendment, only Congress has the power to remove federal nominees from federal elections.
Which is also what we said the court might say.
Only Congress and not states can disqualify the president. Stop doing that. While this ruling shuts the door on state action, it does leave open the potential for Congress to act. And some Congress members are already saying that they plan to set up a process to disqualify Trump.
I am working with a number of my colleagues to set up a process by which we could determine that someone is disqualified by Section 3 of the 14th Amendment.
But in reality, the available votes make that pretty unlikely.
Fighter Sean Strickland really hates TikToker Bryce Hall and wants to fight him. But not in a professional regulated sports setting, rather just out in the open somewhere with a GoPro.
Is that legal? Well, Sean himself has brought up the popular claim that some states have laws allowing for mutual combat, specifically Texas and Washington. But that's not really correct.
First of all, mutual combat is not legal in the state of Washington, despite so many articles on the internet saying that it is. There's simply no Washington law allowing this. There's only one Seattle City ordinance that is worded kind of ambiguously and might suggest that this is allowed.
Now, there are reports about guys consenting to fights and police not doing anything about it, but that's likely just because the police didn't care, which happens all the time, and not because a specific law sanctioned combat.
Now for Texas. Texas does actually have a law that allows someone to raise mutual combat as a defense to assault or battery. But it won't apply if someone gets seriously hurt or if someone even threatens serious harm. So it's definitely not a legal freebie to go beat the absolute crap out of someone.
And for Sean specifically, who has already implied that he wants to kill Bryce, the mutual combat defense would likely not work, even in Texas. Very sad case, a California sheriff's deputy shot and killed a 15-year-old boy with autism, who was rapidly advancing on him with a large bladed gardening tool.
As you might expect, this has elicited a lot of controversy and questions online. So let's discuss the law. The case begins with a 911 call where the boy's family said he was attacking them and holding glass in his hand. Reportedly, the 911 call did not mention that the boy was autistic, and it's unclear if any officers actually knew this. When officers arrived, one approached an open front door, and the boy immediately began advancing at the officer with the bladed gardening tool. The officer retreated several yards and yelled for the boy to stop, but he didn't stop, and then the officer fired.
While many criticized the officer for failing to de-escalate and instead resorting to lethal force, under the law, this was very likely a justified use of force. For police to use deadly force, they only need to reasonably believe that they're facing an imminent threat of great bodily harm.
Here, where officers are called to an assault in progress, and upon arrival, someone advances on them with a bladed weapon and continues even after they retreat, the law will almost certainly side with the officer in using deadly force. And it's important to note, there's no legal requirement that officers try to use a taser first.
Now, just because something is legal certainly doesn't mean that it's the best course of action. Over the years, substantial effort and research has gone into reforming how police handle those in mental crises. But for now, there isn't strong evidence to show real-world improvement in outcomes, which means much more attention is still needed. Drake's fans passed him a note at a concert asking him to pay off his deceased mom's $160,000 mortgage. And Drake said he'd do it.
Mom passed away. Oh, this is the outstanding balance right here. It's a lot of money right here. But you know what? I'm gonna pay off her mom's house. That's the piece of
So was that an actual legal enforceable contract? Well, what Drake did here was technically make a promise of a gift. This wasn't actually a contract because contracts require something called consideration.
Sounds weird, but basically just means that both parties have to give up something. In a gift situation, one side gets everything without giving anything. Sounds familiar?
Anyway, promises of gifts generally aren't enforceable. The legal system just really doesn't want to deal with them. As one legal scholar explained, the world of gift giving would be impoverished if simple donative promises that are based on effective considerations such as love or friendship were folded into the hard-headed world of contract. Good God, lawyers are boring. But this is the law, damn it, so there's always an exception.
Under the theory of promissory estoppel, more weird terms, a promise of a gift can be legally enforceable if someone relies on that promise and gets screwed if the promised gift never happens. So in this scenario, if the Drake fan thought, oh great, my mom's house is now paid off, I can finally afford to enroll in law school, and did enroll, a court could force Drake to pay up.
A man in Texas shot and killed his wife after finding out that she was having an affair. And the legal outcome here will shock you.
So this whole incident was actually caught on video recorded by the wife. We obviously won't show the shooting, but right before pulling the trigger, the man says, all right, goodbye, you're going to meet Jesus. I hope it was worth it.
Goodbye, Reese. Hasta luego. You gonna make this. Hope it was worth it.
This all tragically happened in the driveway of their home while their daughter was at school.
So at trial, the man never argued that he was innocent. He admitted he was guilty, obviously. And yet, he was only sentenced to 10 years in prison with a possibility for parole in 5.
How? Well, he argued that he committed this heinous crime during a sudden passion, which is a real factor that Texas and many other states actually consider.
Basically, if a defendant convinces a jury that they were overwhelmed by rage or emotion and not thinking clearly during the time of a murder, and the victim caused the defendant to experience that overwhelming emotion, this will change first-degree murder into the lesser second-degree murder, which means a significantly lower sentence.
The hypothetical of a spouse discovering an affair is actually the quintessential example of this that we all learn about in law school.
And in this case, the jury bought the argument and handed down the relatively light sentence.
Now, what kind of jury are you envisioning in your head for this case? I bet it's not an all-female jury, but that was actually the case here. In this viral video, a DoorDash driver refuses to give a man the alcohol he ordered.
I mean, you look like you've been drinking, so... Yeah.
What you mean?
That's all I can tell. Whoa. Alright, I'm following
Yeah, you do that.
The driver won't hand over the booze because it looks like the man has already been drinking.
Most of the comments here are giving the driver tons of crap for this, saying the man paid for alcohol to be delivered to his home and he isn't driving and should receive his order. But who's actually in the right here?
But we only have a few seconds of this clip, so we don't actually know how intoxicated the man appeared. But it is DoorDash policy to not deliver alcohol to anyone who appears intoxicated.
In fact, it's not just company policy, it's actually a crime in many states. Now, most state laws use terms like obviously intoxicated or very intoxicated. So again, we can't say for sure how this man in the video actually appeared. But there is at least a legal basis to back up the driver's refusal.
This whole issue is similar to the liability that bartenders face if they serve alcohol to an already very intoxicated person.
We've all seen in movies a bartender who refuses to keep serving a person who's already super wasted, and they proceed to throw a fit about it.
But in many states, this is a real thing. Some states even have dram shop laws, which make a bartender liable if they negligently serve alcohol to someone who's already drunk. And that drunk person goes on to cause harm. The quintessential example here being a drunk driving
A
accident.
few states even extend this law to your own home. So if you overserve someone at your house party and they end up crashing on their way home and killing someone, you could be held liable.